Welcome to the Your Story is Our Story podcast, brought to you by the new 3rs.org, which is dedicated to telling the social justice stories of yesterday and today. My name is Neil Foote, host of this podcast, where we will have honest, heartfelt, and heart-wrenching conversations about race and culture in our communities. This podcast is our way of helping you join us in our mission. The new 3Rs educates and empowers through the art of social justice storytelling, building relationships and fostering a sense of responsibility. We are creating a more civic and compassionate society, one child at a time. In today's episode of the Your Story is Our Story podcast, we will bring you the first of 3 intergenerational conversations featuring Lola West, founding partner of West Fuller Advisors, that provides strategic insight and investment advice to nationally recognized organizations and high net worth and exclusive clientele in the United States and abroad. She is joined by students Jaden and Nisa, who are 2 wonderfully brilliant and inspiring young women. During today's conversation, Jaden and Nisa will share their stories about confronting and enduring racial prejudice during their school days now and in the past. Lola will join the discussion, sharing her own stories, insights, and advice. We'll wrap up the episode with our very own Dannie Gore, who will offer this week's Black History class. Jaden, please share your story. So Jaden, please open us off. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
A little bit about me is I love to do sports. I love to read. I love volunteer work. But I think most importantly, I love history. History is one of my favorite subjects at school. And outside of school, I'm in about 3 extracurricular history programs, one of which is the new 3Rs, which brought me here today. And in the new 3Rs, I am in the history committee. So I handle all things about Black history, and I am responsible for learning about Black history. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Nisa?
Hi, my name is Nisa. I'm in I'm a sophomore. I live in New York, and just a little bit about myself, like Jade and I do a lot of extracurricular activities. I'm interested in law. I love the performing arts, and I just do a lot of different things with advocacy. In my role in the new 3Rs program, I work in the youth responsive philanthropy. It is absolutely right up my alley because I love just advocating and doing activist work and doing things to uplift the Black community. I have always been a person who will always take the moments and take the chance to stand up for what I believe is right. And just using the different research that I've done in finding different Black-led organizations just across the world, not only in our country. I've figured out the different places where I can go to help out our Black community, and I've just been really focused on that, and I really hope to continue that as I get older.
Excellent. Well, again, both of you are so active in the new 3Rs. Formerly, Nisa chairs the new 3Rs Giving Circle that will do a global grant, making it available for those funds to Black-led organizations. And Jaden, as she mentioned, chairs the Black History Committee. I want to dive into your stories and what brings us here today about this conversation that we're having about race and culture in our country today. And what we know is that it's affecting every generation, young and old, in so many different ways. And what I think is so exciting about today's conversation is that you each have stories that really get to the heart of how this plays out, the intersection of race and culture and life in your everyday lives, that I think can be so, that will resonate with so many other young ladies who are going through this. Jaden, I understand back in middle school you had an encounter with a math teacher that you'd like to talk about.
Yes. So something that happened to me, I don't remember exactly which grade, but I was in class and an instructor would go around and check our homework, as they would do. And so I sat next to the only other Black student in my class, and they did not always get their homework done on time. And so the teacher would kind of come around, would get to me, I hand in my homework, would go to the other student, and on occasion their work wasn't done. And so one day they just weren't in class. I don't remember if they were ill or whatever, but they weren't there. And so the instructor came around and checked our homework per usual. And she peered over her attendance book and was just like, "Oh, you don't have your homework today, do you?" And I looked up and I was like, "What?" And then she was just like, "Yeah, you don't have your homework today, right?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's right here." And she was like, "Oh, sorry, I thought you were someone else." And that really struck me because this was 4 or 5 months into the school year. I've been sitting here every single day, raising my hand in class, solving problems, and I've been sitting in the same exact spot, and you still don't see me. So that was really unsettling to me. It was just like, I didn't understand how she could have made that mistake this far into the school year. And this never happened to any of the white students. So I was just like shocked. And then in this same space, the white students would sit on the left side of the class, and all of the students of color would sit on the right side. And whenever the students on the left side of the class would kind of ask a question about whether it would be homework or things that we're learning in class that day, she would run to their aid, basically. She would be more than willing to answer their questions, help them out with solving the problems. But when it came to anyone else, it was always, "Oh, you should have known this already. We learned it last week." Or "It was in the homework. If you read the problem again, you'll understand it." And it just seems like she really did not want to help us for whatever reason. And so whenever the students of color in her class wanted help, we had to go over to the white students and ask them to help us and ask them to repeat what the instructor said to them. Which in itself is just an issue because, if you are going to be here and be an instructor, then you have to help everyone. And so because of that, I didn't do very well that year. And I was fully convinced that it was something with me and that I was the reason that I wasn't succeeding in math, and that there must have been something that I had done where I was not deserving of help. And so that experience just really negatively affected me when it came to math. And I never reported it to a teacher or to my mom until 2 years later, because I didn't really know what I was supposed to do about it at that point. So yeah, it's just a moment that really stuck with me. Yeah.
Well, there's so much to unpack there. Lola, I saw you nodding your head at several points along the way. This whole concept of invisibility, right, Lola, and which I want to get back to. But yeah, so much to get to. Let's hear Nisa's story, and then I want to bring Lola into the conversation as well. Nisa, you've experienced some discomfort in your experiences at school as well. Share some of those experiences.
Well, like I was saying before, I've always been very brazen in how I respond to things, and I've never shined, I've never shied away from responding in any type of space. I've always been very comfortable in my blackness, and it started at a minimal scale when I was younger, from around fourth grade to fifth grade. So I just specifically remember one situation where I was in this space and I was playing with my friends and we were just carrying it on. And one girl was laying on the floor. And I mean, the floor is the space that you walk on. If you are laying on the floor, there's a possibility you might get stepped on. And she had her hair out. She had her hair all over the floor and just spread out. And I didn't see her on the floor because who would expect to find a person laying on the floor? And I accidentally stepped on her hair. And there's a lot of sensitivity in white hair. And she got up and she started screaming, and she started making a whole fuss and a whole commotion. And she started saying I was aggressive and that I was trying to hurt her. And then not even a few minutes later, 5 other girls who were not involved in the situation got up, and they physically crowded around me and stared at me and started yelling at me, saying that I shouldn't have touched her, that I was being a bad person, that I was being mean. And I looked them dead in the eye and I said, "You are all racists." And this was in the 5th grade. And I genuinely, I didn't have the resources. I didn't know the correct terminology, as it wasn't maybe an overt act of racism. There was still something there. There was something in them that was triggered to feel like they had to come up against me. And I took that with me because I realized that I'm not accepted. And even when I ever respond to it, I'm going to be even less accepted. So it was just really, it took a toll on my reputation throughout just growing up, because people would feel that I was too open and I was fighting too much. And it took a toll on my mental health, definitely, because I felt like but I couldn't, because I wouldn't be accepted anywhere. So that's just something that's really stuck with me.
Wow. I mean, I think those are the kinds of experiences that do live with us a long time, Nisa, and I think many of us have some of those experiences along the way. Lola, as you hear these stories from these young ladies, what's your reaction? What are some thoughts that you have?
First, I wanted to just thank both Nisa and Jaden for doing what they're doing with the 3Rs, and most assuredly doing this podcast and coming and sharing your stories, because stories make a difference in people's lives, because it's the way in which they can see themselves and therefore feel a part of. And for both of you, don't think you're special. They've been doing this. I am 50 plus years older than both of you. And I can share, and I will, the experiences that I had, which show you that we really have not come that far. I was in the 10th grade. I was doing geometry, and I did not understand some of the concepts. Now, mind you, up to the 10th grade, I was a 90 plus student in math. I mean, I can add columns of figures by looking at them. So the teacher gave me a D, and my mother went ballistic. So my mother came up to the school, and the teacher got an attitude with my mother about my ability. She picked the wrong Black woman. I remained in the class, and the next test I took, I got 100. Having an advocate for yourself, or having you advocate for yourself, or your parents advocate for you, make all the difference in the world. One other incident happened when I was in, oh God, it's the same thing, in the 10th grade. At Erasmus. The school was predominantly white. The class that I was in, there were only 2 Black people in the class, me and a girl that I went to junior high with. So as soon as I saw her in the class, we were friends. So she was sitting in one seat and I was sitting in another seat. Oh, share the book with someone. So I think I had the book, and Pat came over and sat with me. And the teacher, I didn't have the mouth then that I have now, but I knew who had a mouth, and who I was I mean, I was so confused by her ease in which she said that. Now you got to get, this is 1963. Remember all the things that happened in 1963? And this woman said this to me. So I went downstairs, put a dime in the phone, called my mother, and I was upset. My mother was in the school 45 minutes later. I had no idea what she said to the principal, to the assistant principal, or to the substitute teacher. What I do know was I was the first Black monitor for the principal of the school the next day. So speaking up for yourself, not taking anything makes a difference. What teachers don't expect is for Black parents to come up or for a student to be able to respond to what's going on. So nothing has changed. And I'm so terribly sorry that Black girls, Black children are still having the same experience. And with what's been going on now with 75 people voting for Trump, we've got that and more to look forward to.
Yes, 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 yes. A question for Jaden and Lisa. I mean, with those incidents, how once those things happened, as Jaden, you said, it took you kind of a couple years later before you even revealed to your mom. How has that shaped you in understanding how to be a classmate to some of these young ladies and young men that might be with you, and how has it changed you in some way of understanding who you are and who you as a Black person in this country? I'll start with you, Jaden, and then I'll ask you, Nisa, to respond to the same.
Like one of the very few Black people in my school since kindergarten. When I was in kindergarten, I was the only Black student there. I don't think I even knew what was going on really. And it took me some time to realize that some experiences that happened to me were racist or were prejudiced or were problematic in some way. But then in 7th grade, when I joined the affinity group at my school, the students and the teachers there really helped me to I guess be comfortable with being a Black student, and they also gave me really helpful tools for responding to incidents. We learned not to go up and confront the student directly all the time because that doesn't always end well. The best route would be to go to a teacher or a grade dean or an adult that's there that you trust, that you trust will help you and advocate for you, like Miss Lola was saying. So I've kind of learned not to be as like reactive towards the students themselves, but I will speak up for myself now, like if or at least try my best to make sure that something is done about it. And if nothing is done about it on, the teacher level, then I will go up to a student and, try to explain to them why what they did or what they said was wrong. But yeah, I just definitely speak up for myself now, and I don't let things, go out the window.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Nisa, how about yourself?
I think just with my kind of like early activism, it's really taught me that, like Miss Lola was saying, advocacy makes all the difference. Even though there was a sacrifice that I had to make, I sacrificed really everything. I sacrificed friendships, I sacrificed my reputation, I sacrificed my mental health, all to fight for something. But even in that, there was still change that was made. And even just making that effort, like even though if it was just a small effort, just telling someone, hey, that wasn't okay what she said to me, or telling multiple people, you cannot do this to me. You have to treat me the same way you treat everyone else. It makes all the difference. And I have made changes in spaces. I have gotten more attention around race. I have gotten counselors to come in, and I have gotten things to really change in the environment. I definitely just know for myself that now it's really important to take care of myself instead of always having to fight for something. I think I spent a lot of my childhood going through just constantly just attacking and just constantly trying to change. It's exhausting, and it's a lot for a 10-year-old, 9-year-old to go through. And I think for now, I think I'm going to make up for it by giving a level of balance and moderating and picking and choosing my battles to fight.
Wow, that is so powerful and so much wisdom right there in terms of understanding it.
My name is Dannie Gore Sr. Today's Black History class is going to be on an African-American artist named Louise E. Jefferson. Louise E. Jefferson, the daughter of a calligrapher for the United States Treasury Department, was encouraged to draw from an early age and later studied fine art at Howard University. She moved to New York to continue her education at the School of Fine Arts at Hunter College. In Harlem, Jefferson came in contact with other African-American artists and in 1935 became a founding member of the Harlem Arts Guild. During her early years in New York, Jefferson struggled financially. She earned money by taking freelance drawing work, which led to a full-time position with the National Council of Churches publishing operation, Friendship Press. Jefferson eventually became the press's art director and was perhaps the first African-American woman to hold such a position in the publishing industry. I'm Dannie Gore Sr., and this is your Black History class.
Thank you, Dannie. Don't forget to tune into part 2 of our conversation with Lola, Jaden, and Nisa. In our next episode, we learn more about Lola's fascinating journey, including the likes of the late South African president, Nelson Mandela, Jesse Norman, Maya Angelou, Elton John, Toni Morrison, Whoopi Goldberg, August Wilson, and Camille Crosby.